In a world where outward appearances often mask internal chaos, few tales are as chilling or as paradoxical as that of Chris Coleman. The man stood as a beacon of religious morality, serving as the head of security for the internationally renowned Joyce Meyer Ministries, an organization dedicated to spreading the message of hope, healing, and salvation through faith. Yet behind the curtain of Christian conviction and charismatic public image, a dark and deadly storm brewed. When the American public first heard about the brutal murders of Sherry Coleman and her two young sons, Garrett and Gavin, in their quiet suburban Illinois home in May 2009, the nation mourned. The crime was savage, the imagery haunting, and the apparent randomness of the act stirred widespread panic. But what began as a horrifying tragedy quickly unraveled into something even more disturbing. A meticulously plotted triple homicide, committed not by a stranger, but by the husband and father of the victims. What could drive a man so deeply entrenched in religious service to commit such an unspeakable act? What fissures in morality and mind allowed a seemingly devout protector of faith to transform into a calculated killer? This story does more than recount a crime. It peels back the layers of deception, ego, ambition, and betrayal that transformed Chris Coleman from a trusted guardian of one of America's largest ministries into a convicted murderer. As we dive into this case, we'll explore the interplay between faith and hypocrisy, the dangers of unchecked desire, and the haunting reality that sometimes evil wears the mask of the righteous. This story is not just about a man who snapped. It's about a man who planned, lied, and manipulated, then hid behind the very faith he had pledged to protect. True crime, when told in its rawest form, forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature. This story will take you through the corridors of deception that led to one of the most shocking betrayals of trust and family in recent memory. Join us as we expose the dark double life of Chris Coleman, a tale where love was a lie and loyalty a lethal illusion. Chris Coleman appeared to have it all: a stable career, a loving family, and a powerful connection to one of the world's largest Christian ministries. Born in 1977, Chris was raised in a military household steeped in Christian values. His father, Ron Coleman, was a pastor, and the pressure to live a godly life loomed large over his upbringing. After serving in the U.S. Marine Corps, Chris landed a prestigious position as the Chief of Security for Joyce Meyer Ministries. His duties included protecting one of the most influential evangelical leaders in the world, Joyce Meyer herself. With this position came status, travel, and trust. But while the public saw a devoted Christian and protective family man, the private Chris harbored darker impulses. Chris was married to Sherry Coleman, a bright and compassionate woman who had once been his high school sweetheart. Together, they had two sons, Garrett, 11, and Gavin, 9. The family lived in Columbia, Illinois, in a comfortable suburban neighborhood. From the outside, they were a model Christian family, attending church regularly and upholding the values Chris was supposedly paid to defend. But behind closed doors, their marriage was unraveling. Sherry confided in friends that Chris had become emotionally distant and frequently traveled. Chris, meanwhile, was having a passionate affair with Tara Lintz, a former friend of Sherry's from Florida. Tara Lintz was a charismatic woman, known for her attractiveness and vibrant personality. She had known the Colemans from their earlier days in Florida, and her friendship with Sherry made the affair all the more twisted. What began as flirtation turned into an intense emotional and physical relationship. Chris and Tara exchanged hundreds of emails and text messages, some of which included explicit sexual content, as well as plans for a future together. He sent Tara a promise ring and even talked about names for their future children. Chris told Tara that his marriage was over, that Sherry was emotionally unstable, and that a divorce was on the horizon. Despite never filing any paperwork, Tara would later testify in court that Chris had assured her they would be married by the end of 2009. They even planned a tropical vacation together. For Tara, this was a love story in the making. For Chris, it was a ticking time bomb. Chris's fear of losing his position at Joyce Meyer Ministries if news of the affair and a potential divorce became public, combined with his twisted desire to maintain his lifestyle and relationship with Tara, led him down a deadly path. Chris's affair with Tara Lentz was more than a fleeting romance. It was the driving force behind his descent into darkness. Emails and phone records revealed an intense emotional and physical connection. Chris promised Tara a new life, free from the constraints of his marriage. But divorce was not an option, not just for personal reasons, but professional ones. Joyce Meyer Ministries had a strict code of conduct. A divorce, particularly one caused by infidelity, could threaten Chris's job and reputation. His professional and spiritual image would crumble. In the twisted logic of Chris Coleman's mind, the solution wasn't confession, it was erasure. If his wife and children were gone, he could start fresh with Tara, unencumbered by scandal or consequence. Months before the murders, Chris began a campaign of manipulation and deceit. He started sending anonymous threatening emails and letters to Joyce Meyer Ministries and to himself, claiming that his family was in danger because of his association with the ministry. The messages were meant to lay the groundwork for what he would later claim was an act of terrorism or retaliation. He even created a fake email account using the pseudonym destroychris@gmail.com to send the threats. On May 5, 2009, Chris left for the gym early in the morning. At 6:43 a.m., he called a neighbor to request a welfare check, claiming he hadn't heard from his wife. Police entered the Coleman home and found a nightmarish scene. Sherry was found strangled in her bed. Garrett and Gavin were found strangled in their separate rooms. Red spray paint covered the walls with disturbing messages like, "You have paid," and "Punish." The crime scene had been staged to look like a hate crime or religiously motivated attack, but detectives noticed inconsistencies right away. The spray paint was fresh, the timeline was tight, and Chris's alibi shaky. Police quickly grew suspicious of Chris. His lack of emotion at the scene was jarring. Surveillance footage contradicted his timeline, and digital forensics exposed the truth. The threatening emails were sent from Chris's own laptop. Further investigation revealed Chris had been in constant communication with Tara Lentz, even sending her a promise ring. His phone records showed he was home during the estimated time of the murders. DNA evidence and lack of forced entry pointed to an inside job. Chris's father, Pastor Ron Coleman, was devastated. Initially, he and his wife defended their son, believing there had to be some mistake. But as the evidence became overwhelming, Ron struggled to reconcile his faith with the horrific possibility that his son could have committed such evil. During interviews, he admitted that if Chris was guilty, it was a tragedy beyond comprehension. However, he never publicly condemned his son, choosing instead to rely on his faith and offer prayers for all involved. The media frenzy was intense. A man who was supposed to uphold Christian values had brutally murdered his own family to protect his affair and career. It was a betrayal that reverberated across religious communities and shocked the nation. Chris Coleman was arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. His trial began in 2011 and was one of the most watched criminal cases of the decade. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence. The emails traced to his IP address, his ongoing affair, and promises of a new life. Testimonies from friends and family about marital issues. The defense struggled to counter the damning evidence. Chris's demeanor in court, cold and calculating, only reinforced the prosecution's narrative. On May 5, 2011, exactly 2 years after the murders, Chris Coleman was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The Coleman family was devastated. Sherry's relatives fought for custody of her memory, ensuring her legacy lived on in the hearts of those who loved her. The house where the murders took place was demolished, a physical erasure of an unspeakable act. Joyce Meyer Ministries distanced themselves from Chris and reviewed their employee protocols. Many followers of the ministry were left shaken, questioning how such darkness could fester within their ranks. Chris remains behind bars, with no remorse shown to date. His name has become synonymous with betrayal, and his story a dark reminder that sometimes evil comes dressed in righteousness. The Chris Coleman case stands as a haunting example of how greed, deception, and self-interest can turn the most sacred of spaces, one's home, into a stage for calculated murder. But tragically, this case is not isolated. The betrayal of family trust by someone within has echoed across numerous true crime stories. Consider Scott Peterson, who murdered his pregnant wife Lacey to pursue a life free from the responsibilities he once embraced. Or John List, who executed his entire family in 1971, claiming financial hardship and religious reasoning as his twisted justification. Then there's Neil Entwistle, a British man who killed his wife and baby daughter in Massachusetts, attempting to conceal his financial ruin and double life. Each of these killers, like Chris Coleman, wore the mask of the ideal father, husband, and citizen. Each was deeply involved in maintaining a certain image, be it religious, professional, or social. But behind closed doors, each man allowed selfish desire to fester until it erupted into tragedy. What makes the Coleman case particularly chilling is the way Chris weaponized faith. Not only did he betray his vows as a husband and father, but he also exploited the trust of a global religious community. His position within Joyce Meyer Ministries made him a symbol of protection and spiritual strength. Yet it was in this sacred role that he plotted the deaths of his own family. Greed doesn't always manifest as a thirst for money. It can be a hunger for freedom, for lust, for image. And when that hunger grows unchecked, the consequences can be fatal. At Shadow of Crime Chronicles, we are committed to unearthing these dark, true stories, not to glorify the killers, but to remember the victims and expose the lies that led to their deaths. We believe it's in the shadows where truth often hides, and through telling these stories, we shine a light on the darkest corners of the human psyche. If this story moved you, enraged you, or opened your eyes, please subscribe to our channel. We bring you deeply researched, chilling true crime stories that go beyond the headlines. Share this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new case. Because in this world, where evil often walks in daylight, it's only in the telling that justice finds its echo.